Ceramics is an art form practiced all around the world by all different cultures. Ceramics is an art form where you take a piece of clay, which is essentially mud and water mixed together to make a somewhat plastic material, and you make sculptures, vessels, cups, bowls, anything you can think of in 3D. And then it comes to life. I've been practicing ceramic art for 4 years now, and I've taken multiple classes at high school and at local art centers. So hopefully by the end of this speech you guys will have a better understanding of what ceramic art is and some of its processes. First, I'll talk to you about hand building and some of its qualities. Then I'll talk about the potter's wheel and how that works. And then I will talk to you about the firing process, which is essentially taking a piece of clay and turning it into a finished product. So hand building is, as it sounds, you use your hands to construct something. There are many different techniques. One of them that I'll talk about in specific is called slab building. So in slab, you take a piece of a lump of clay and you roll it out flat, and you can wrap it like you see in the picture and create vessels. You can also take that piece of rolled out clay and slump it over a mold. There are other types of hand building, pinch, and yeah, there are also many different tools that are used during used during hand building, such as the pin tool, which is to etch in designs. You can see some of the designs in there probably made by a pin tool. And others like the pear and ribbon tool, those are for hollowing out large pieces of clay. And so now I've talked to you about hand building and some of its qualities, and now I'll talk to you about the potter's wheel and how it works. So the potter's wheel is it's generally an 11-inch aluminum wheel attached to a motor, and the motor spins the wheel around, and so it's generally used to make bowls, cups, and other sort of vessels. So the process starts with you take a lump of clay, you place it on the wheel, you attach it to the wheel head, and you start spinning it. And while you're doing this, you're adding water to keep it moist so it doesn't dry up. And the first step is to get the piece of clay in the middle of the wheel as possible, so that it's not wobbling, so it spins perfectly on center. And then the next step after you do that is to drill a hole down in the middle of that piece of clay, but not all the way through to touch the bottom. You want to have a sort of a base to create the bottom of the pot or whatever you're making. And then from there you pinch the outside and the inside and pull the clay up, thinning it out and making the wall as tall as it needs to be. I'm oversimplifying it for time, but essentially that's what it is. And then after that you would cut it off the wheel with what's called a wire cutter, which is just a piece of wire attached with two pieces of wood on the end. And then you would let that dry, and then you trim it by using some of the other tools and reattaching it to the wheel and trimming it once it's a little bit drier. So now that I've talked to you about the potter's wheel and how it's used, now I'll talk to you about the firing process. The firing process starts once you've finished working with the piece of clay, and when you're working with a piece of clay, the state is considered to be called plastic, and after that it becomes leather hard, then bone dry, and then what we call greenware. And then the greenware will go through its first firing, which is low fire, and low fire is at 1850 degrees Fahrenheit, according to ceramicstoday.com. And after that, you have a semi-finished piece of ceramic, because it's essentially turned into rock through the firing process. But it's not waterproof yet, so the next step would be to put glaze on it, which is essentially liquid glass. And then that would go back into the firing mechanism, and that temperature is 2350 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's it. So first I talked to you about hand building and some of its qualities. Then I talked about the potter's wheel, and then I talked about the firing process. So now hopefully you guys have a better understanding of ceramics.